This is Inside Indiana Business Radio for the afternoon of Friday, March 10th, 2023. I'm Alex Brown. While far from a full-fledged housing recovery, the Indiana Association of Realtors says home purchases over the last 2 months are cutting a year-over-year sales gap. The organization says Indiana home sales jumped 17% from January to February, with nearly 4,900 homes sold statewide. The Realtor Group says February sales were still 15% below the same period in 2022, but it revealed an improvement over the 30% drop seen in December. The association says home buyers are taking advantage of the higher inventory caused by cooling demand. Evansville-based Old National Bank is growing its footprint in Michigan. The bank announced Thursday it is establishing a commercial banking office in the Detroit metropolitan area and adding 7 jobs. A spokesperson for Old National told our partners at the IBJ there are no immediate plans to add any retail branches in the Detroit market. The bank is starting with a solely commercial focus. Old National does have branches in 10 other Michigan cities. Bloomington-based Upland Brewing Company has unveiled the first beer branded for Indiana University athletics. The beer, known as Hoosier Game Day Lager, was developed based on feedback from IU fans, and the brewery says a portion of sales will go toward IU scholarships. The beer is now available as a limited edition draft at all Upland Brewing locations throughout the state and will be sold at retail locations beginning in August. From the number one source for Indiana business news, this is Inside Indiana Business Radio.
Get ready, Southwest Indiana. We're headed your way. IBJ Media, Inside Indiana Business, and the Indiana Economic Development Corporation invite you to the second annual Engage Southwest Indiana event presented by Indiana University and Old National Bank, Tuesday, April 11th at the Old National Events Plaza in Evansville. We'll be diving into regional and statewide initiatives with a focus on talent, education, and issues shaping our economy. It's all about advancing the future of Indiana. More at ibj.com/engage.
A bill designed to incentivize Indiana counties to permit solar and wind projects passed the Senate last week and is expected to be heard in the House later this month. But a key provision that would have allowed state dollars to fund the program was stripped from the legislation. Senate Bill 390 would authorize the Office of Energy and Development to create a commercial solar and wind energy incentive fund. The fund would have been overseen by the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, allocating $20 million for the program over a 2-year period, which drew criticism from opponents like Joan Knoll of Whitley County, a member of Hoosiers for Reliable Energy.
This bill would take our own Indiana taxpayer dollars and offer them back to us as a bribe. Wind and solar both get federal tax dollars. Wind and solar already have enough money to seduce the counties. We do not need to use precious state tax dollars to do their dirty work for them. If wind and solar developers want the IEDC to grease the skids and open the doors for them, then they are certainly well able to pay for that service. The $1 per megawatt hour needs to be paid by the developers, not from the pockets of Hoosier taxpayers.
The bill was later amended to remove the state-funded incentive. Now the incentive program can only be funded through federal grant dollars, which the Energy Development Office would have to apply for. Indiana Utility Regulatory Commissioner Stephanie Krevda is stepping down from her post, Governor Eric Holcomb's office announced today. Krevda, who was first appointed to the IURC in 2018 by Holcomb, will remain until the end of April. She notified the governor that she wished to spend more time with her young family in her decision to step down. The commission's nominating committee will meet to evaluate potential replacements after her departure. Its list of candidates will be forwarded to the governor, who will decide who will fill the vacated post. A monthly analysis of consumer spending conducted by Purdue University reveals Americans are more likely to make frugal use of their 2023 tax refunds. The Purdue Center for Food Demand Analysis and Sustainability says the national average of a tax refund this year is about $1,900. Center Director Jason Lusk said most people will not be going out to spend their money in frivolous ways.
And when asked how they plan to spend that tax refund, the most common response chosen by about half of respondents was they were going to save it. The next most common response was that people plan to pay down debt. Other folks then plan to go on vacation. And out of a longer list of terms, the fourth most highest was that people plan to buy either more or better quality food.
Lusk says there seems to be some optimism about food inflation improving, but consumers are not willing or able to spend more money on food than they are currently. A black tenured professor at Indiana University Northwest is suing the school over allegations of discrimination on the basis of race, freedom of speech rights violations, and illegal firing.
Our partners at the Times of Northwest Indiana report Mark McPhail is suing the university, its board of trustees, Chancellor Ken Awama, and 2 other administrators in federal court. In the lawsuit, McPhail says that because he held a forum in 2018 in which he argued IUN's campus climate contributed to racial disparities, and criticized university administration for alleged lack of adherence to university policies, he was banned from teaching and his salary was reduced by 70%. Additionally, the publication reports McPhail complained in 2018 about the hiring of David Clayman, who is now the dean of the School of Arts at IUN. McPhail claimed the hiring process was not transparent, in violation of university policy. Clayman is one of the other administrators named in the suit. The Times report says McPhail was assigned to IU Bloomington for a 2-year assignment. After returning to the Gary campus, McPhail returned to his job, but a subsequent performance evaluation conducted by Clayman gave him poor marks when his teaching was characterized as, quote, inadequate. The paper says IUN intended to suspend McPhail due to the negative employee evaluation, which McPhail said was retaliatory. On September 14, 2021, one day after he appealed his suspension, McPhail was terminated. In a response filed to the court, the defendants denied that McPhail's firing was connected to the April 2018 forum or to his complaints about Clayman's hiring. McPhail is seeking a jury trial. He hopes to receive reinstatement to his job as well as monetary damages. Wes Mills, Inside Indiana Business, Radio on Demand.
White River State Park Executive Director Jake Oakman is this week's guest on the Business and Beyond podcast with Gary Dick, presented by PNC, a weekly conversation with high-profile Hoosiers in business, sports, and entertainment, and beyond. Available now from your favorite podcast provider. I'm Alex Brown for Inside Indiana Business Radio on Demand.